Straight to the point. 50 most frequently asked multiple choice question. Law of Torts, Motor Vehicle Act and Consumer Protection Act by Ask Me Anything. This is very important for all India Bar examination, which is to be conducted very soon, and it is also very important for other judicial service examination. These Law of Torts, Motor Vehicles Act and Consumer Protection Act are most neglected subject in all India Bar examination by the students. But these subjects are easily scoreable even without the help of books in open books assessment. Okay, now as per the demand of the examination, I am bringing 50 most frequently asked question from this subject. Let us see 50 most frequently asked multiple choice question in all India Bar examination from this subject. So let us try to understand what is tort first. A tort is an act or omission that causes injury or harm to another person and amounts to a civil wrong for which court impose a legal duty to compensate someone for damage caused, which is said to be as a liability. So the first question is that the maxim volenti non fit injuria means that an act is not actionable as a tort at the suit of any person who has expressly, that means directly or impliedly or indirectly, consented to it. Coming to the next question, the tortious liability, that is a legal duty to compensate someone for damages caused, happen to be freed only when if the plaintiff dies or if the defendant dies or the defendant agrees to pay the compensation in terms of money. Next question is that pigeonhole theory was propounded by Salmond. Next question, in tortious liability, the state of mind of a person is generally irrelevant except in some cases. The next question is that who are the person that cannot sue for tort? Say they are alien enemy, convict, bankrupt, husband and wife, corporation, an infant or minor. A foreign state cannot sue for the tort, but this is subject to the certain limitations. Next question is that in a contract, duty is owed to a definite person, but in case of tort, duty is owed to whom? Especially this duty is owed to the society in general. Malice in law essentially constitute commission of wrong act, involvement of intention of wrongdoer, absence of validity of grounds. The tort of trespass to goods takes place when there has been actual taking of the goods of another person or there is direct and immediate damage to the another person's goods. In the absence of defamation, the courts usually awards contemptuous damage. Here contemptuous means expressing deep hatred. A nervous shock may be caused by words spoken by the defendant or by the act of the defendant. The definition of the tort is defined in the Limitation Act of 1963. In torts, all person who aid or counsel or direct or join in the committal of a wrongful act are known as joint tort feasors. In torts, in case of defamation, intention to defame is not necessary. Under the vicarious liability, the liability is joint and several. Contributory negligence means the failure by a person to use reasonable care for the safety of either of himself or his property. Legal doctrine that holds a party responsible for their actions or products without the plaintiff having to prove negligence or fault is called strict liability. Strict liability means when someone does hazardous activities such as keeping wild animals, using explosive or making defective products, then they may be held liable if someone else is injured. This strict liability is most frequently asked question in All India Bar examination. A tort is civil wrong for which the remedy is an action for unliquidated damages. Unliquidated damages means the amount of money to be fixed or determined by the court, and which is not exclusively the breach of contract or the breach of a trust or the breach of other merely equitable obligations. It is said by Salmond. Coming to the next, Gloucester Grammar School case deals with damnum sine injuria. Damnum sine injuria means when damage has been caused but there has been no violations of legal right. The essential ingredients of the tort of negligence are when one owes a duty of care towards the other, when one commits a breach of that duty, and the other person suffering damage is a consequence of their actions. Pollution is civil wrong by its very nature. It is a tort committed against the community as a whole. A person, therefore, who is guilty of causing pollution has to pay compensation for restoration for the environment. However, the court cannot impose any pollution fine in absence of any trial and finding of guilty under the relevant statutory provisions. This observation is made in the case of MC Mehta as a petitioner versus Kamal Nath and others as a respondent. In tort, there are two broad categories of activities for which a plaintiff may be held strictly liable: possession of certain animal and abnormally dangerous activities. Vicarious liability includes liability of the principal for the tort of his agent, liability of his master for the tort of his servant, liability of the partners for each other's tort. The term tort is French word. In tort, what is vicarious liability? It means a person is liable for the wrongful act done by others. A common example is that if a servant commits a mistake, master is liable for the mistake committed by the servant. The principle of common employment was evolved for the first time in the case of Priestley versus Fowler. English case Ryland versus Fletcher laid down a very important rule, that is absolute liability. In the tort of conspiracy, the purpose of combination must be to cause damage to the victim. Name one of the leading case on injuria sine damnum. It is in the case of Asby versus White. Name one of the leading case on strict liability, Ryland versus Fletcher. What is the meaning of Latin maxim ubi jus ibi remedium? It means where there is a right, there is a remedy. The Latin word injuria sine damnum literally means infringement of legal right without damages, which measure means act of God. MC Mehta versus Union of India 1986 Sri Ram Food and Fertilizer case relates to oleum gas leak. According to the classical doctrine of act of state in law of tort means an act of sovereign power of the country that cannot be challenged, controlled or interfered with by municipal courts. Now moving to the second part, Motor Vehicles Act and Consumer Protection Act. See, Motor Vehicle Act makes a provision for awarding punishment to the person who caused the motor accident. The District Consumer Forum is established by the state government. Under Consumer Protection Act 1986, a complaint may be made in respect of the following: the goods bought suffer defect, the service hired suffer from deficiency, goods hazardous to life and safety are being offered for sale to the public. What is the limitation period applicable to the three forums in entertaining a complaint under the Consumer Protection Act 1986? It should be 2 years from the date on which the cause of action has arisen. The Consumer Protection Act 1986 came into effect on 24th December 1986. Which section of Consumer Protection Act 1986 defines the term consumer? The term consumer is defined in a section 2 subsection 1 clause D. Under which section of Consumer Protection Act 1986 Consumer Dispute Redressal Agency is established? It is given in section 9 of Consumer Protection Act 1986. Appeals against the award of claims tribunal under the Motor Vehicle Act 1988 can be made under section 173. The amendment in Motor Vehicle Act in 1994, the compensation in case of death of the person is Rs 50,000. Under Consumer Protection Act, the jurisdiction of the district forum should not exceed Rs 20 lakhs. World Consumer Right Day is observed on 15th of March every year. The National Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission was constituted in the year 1988. State government's power to control the road transport is provided in the Motor Vehicle Act 1988 under the sections 57 of Motor Vehicle Act 1988. An appeal against order passed under section 27 of the Consumer Protection Act 1986 by the National Commission lies in the Supreme Court. Under section 2 subsection 1F of Consumer Protection Act 1986, here defect is meant by any fault, imperfection or shortcomings in or in relation to the goods, like quantity, quality, potency, purity or standard. Section 67 of Motor Vehicles Act provides states government's power to control the road transport. Some consumer dispute redressal agencies are like District Forum, State Commission, National Commission. Motor Vehicle Act of 1939 came into force in the year 1939. Grievous hurt under the Motor Vehicles Act 1988 is same as the definition of grievous hurt defined in Indian Penal Code. Under the Motor Vehicle Act 1988, the permissible age of driving the vehicle in any public places is that a person should complete the age of 18 years, or any person under the age of 18 is not permitted to drive a vehicle in any public places. Section 74 subsection 3 Motor Vehicles Act empowers the Regional Transport Authority to limit the number of stage carriers permits. What kind of nature of the function is exercised here? This is administrative function as the authority's decision is based on an official policy. Thank you for watching Ask Me Anything. Please do like, share and subscribe to support my channel Ask Me Anything. Your one subscribe will give me a new platform of teaching. If already subscribed, then thanks for your subscription. And press the bell icon to get interesting questions and latest updates.